Hello and welcome to my channel Inspiring Life Changes. My name is Colette and I am an intuitive tarot reader of over 30 years. This, however, is not a tarot reading. This is my personal interpretation, intuitive interpretation of the astrology of what's taking place today with this full moon in Aries that is occurring today later in the UK round about 10 o'clock. So the reading, what I normally do for those of you who have not been on my channel before, I write my notes out and then I take my notes and I put them onto my laptop and then I read it from my laptop. I will also be putting the link for my blog, which is what I'm actually reading it from, with the tarot reading that I will be doing tomorrow. I might also attach it to this one as well, but it's basically the same thing, but you can get more of the visuals as well because I do add the actual chart to the blog itself and also other pictures as well that I think are quite I can't think of the word at the moment, quite kind of, you know, fitting, shall we say, at the right time. So the reading today I am calling Full Moon in Aries, Healing Our Deeper Subconscious Wounding. And there is a reason for that, which I will explain as I go through my reading. Firstly, before I forget, because I nearly always do, I have taken 3 of the Moonology cards here, and we are starting with the full moon energy, which is saying surrender to the divine, which is always the full moon energy. It's full emotional energy. So when our emotions are at their height, at their highest, at a time when we can't kind of hide how we're feeling from ourselves and possibly from other people as well. And we also have the actual full moon in Aries card, which is saying a fiery climax approaches, which at this time, with everything sitting in the Aries sign as well, there is an awful lot of energy happening here, even though Mars, which is in Aries, is in retrograde at this time. There's still a lot of other activity. And we also have Be Bold and Make the First Move, because it is a cardinal moon. It's a moon of action. It's a moon of doing. And it can also be, because it's so fiery, it can also be a moon of overdoing and overreacting as well. So there is that kind of side to it and a warning there as well. So the divine masculine, sun energy, opposes the divine feminine, moon energy, at the time of the full moon, which is why we get the full moon. It is the light of the sun on the face of the moon. So this full moon in Aries is taking place at 09 degrees and 8 minutes, which finds the sun in opposition at the same degree in the sign of Libra. The moon here is also conjunct Chiron retrograde at 07 degrees 04 minutes, which means the sun is also opposing Chiron. In the UK, this is occurring at 22 and 5 minutes. So you may want to check out your own natal chart to see if you have any points or planets between 04 degrees and 12 degrees of Aries, as well as 0 degrees and 19 degrees Libra, even at 29 degrees of Virgo as well. You could still feel this influence, and you will be feeling it most strongly. If you've got any placements, any points there, any planets, then you will feel this full moon energy, which lasts, by the way, for the next 2 weeks at its strongest, and then kind of peters out a bit more as we get into the next full moon coming up. But it can last for a month, but usually the new moon energy will kind of cut that off as well. So at first glance at this chart, not much seems to be going on, but this is deceptive, which could have something to do with the Neptune energy. I will include more about this later. For now, let's focus on the full moon herself in the fiery, headstrong, dynamic, impulsive, courageous, initiating sign of the Ram, and his first house ruled Mars energy. Here she's been illuminated by the Sun in the diplomatic, peace-loving, balance-seeking, fair, honest, just and harmonious sign of the Scales, and the 7th house Venus ruled energy. Fire and air, which in astrological terms get on literally like a house on fire. Also, these two planets represent the masculine, Mars, and the feminine, Venus energies. And masculine Sun is in the feminine. Oh, sorry, and interestingly, the divine feminine Moon is in the masculine house, and the masculine Sun is in the feminine house. Not only is the 7th house all of the above, it is also the house of our one-to-one relationships, of intimacy. The Sun here is telling us to try and have a more balanced, diplomatic approach, and that harmony and healing are vibrations we could well do with a lot more of in our hectic, stressed and fear-based lifestyles we are now living. The dotted line on the chart, which you can't actually see unless you check out the blog, and like I said, I will attach that, show the aspects just beginning to form. So there is a square energy which is just starting to form as the full moon, takes up that position. So from both the moon and Chiron in Aries across to Jupiter, which is actually forming a square. So what we have is the moon squaring over to Jupiter, and we have the Sun in Libra also squaring over to Jupiter. So Jupiter is kind of the balancing point of the T-square energy here, and kind of the focal point of this T-square, but it is only a very light T-square at the moment because the moon isn't in the further degrees of Aries. If the moon was in kind of 15, 16, 17 degrees of Aries, then it would have been a much stronger T-square energy, but because the moon's only at 9 degrees, she's not really fully connected yet, and she won't be, because by the time the Sun fully connects as well, the moon will have moved on. Although the moon will also in the later days to come actually connect with Jupiter and a stronger square energy. And so this actual T-square is bringing in the energy of Jupiter, which is going to enhance the Chiron healing of our emotional needs that are taking place, because Jupiter is all about expansion and expanding. It's also the sign of optimism and joy as well. So Jupiter is kind of highlighting this Chiron healing process that we're in at this time. Aries is the sign of the self, the I, the new, the personal, the newly born baby, which comes from the water of Pisces. As I've written before, if you count round the zodiac from Cancer, the mother, the universal womb, the 9th sign is Aries, the newly arrived unconscious awareness. Aries is the place where we have to get our needs met from the first breath we take. These needs are fundamental to our survival, and we are not able to vocalize them with words at this stage of our lives. All we can do is make enough noise to express our discomfort as we find ourselves in a physical body outside of the warmth and protection of the mother. If something feels wrong within our new physical form, we need to cry in order to be fed, changed, needing comfort, need to release trapped wind, need more warmth, need to be cooler, need to be loved, need to feel safe and secure. These are major words of Aries. I need. As we also at this stage of our lives need to rely on someone else to be able to provide all those basic needs for us. If we don't get all those needs met at this pre-conscious formative development time in our lives, and let's face it, none of us do, ever, completely, for various different reasons, it can lead to deeply ingrained experiences of trauma, of feeling alone, deserted, unwanted, unloved, and in more severe cases, abandoned, all of which have the potential to set up patterns that we carry with us into our adult life. That trauma can then affect us in our later relationships, and this, for me, is what the full moon in Aries conjunct Chiron opposing the sun in Libra is bringing to our full attention. The full moon is the expression and awareness of our emotions. We can no longer bury or hide from our feelings. Chiron is the wounded healer, saying it is time to heal from those deep wounds. Chiron energy can also be healings from a generational past, the patterns that are passed on a level of subconscious unawareness that continue to reappear from generation to generation. Social conditioning being one of them. Chiron can even bring in our own past lifetimes to be healed and lessons for us to learn in order to move beyond them and solve them and evolve. We are being given an opportunity to do just that, to heal those parts of ourselves that we look to others in our personal relationships to heal for us. Deeply unaware of the reason that we choose to have those relationships is because they are mirroring those wounds back at us. This full moon in Aries will bring up to the surface and into the spotlight all our emotional insecurities and fears that we have not yet dealt with when it comes to our personal survival and the survival of those closest to us. This is a triggering energy that could show up in many different forms: resentment, anger, sadness, extreme explosive behaviour, the need for deep felt comfort, to be held lovingly, the need to feel accepted, all of which is stemming from our earliest years, and what took place or didn't, as the case may be, when we first arrived, vulnerable and dependent on someone else to take care of all our needs. During this time, we may also come to realise that the person we are with is still the person we attached ourselves to at a much earlier time in our evolutionary emotional cycle. But we ourselves and our needs may well have changed. Alternatively, we could also discover something about ourselves and the person we have emotional attachment to that will help us heal those parts of ourselves together. This full moon is also going to help us with the ongoing process that is the healing taking place of the masculine within us all, male and female alike, as Chiron makes its way through the Mars-ruled warrior energy, collectively helping us to heal our wounded inner child. Chiron has been retrograde here since July and will continue to be up until the 15th of December. However, Chiron will not leave Aries until April 2027. So Chiron will actually stop being retrograde on the 15th of December. So we've still got quite some time of Chiron being in that retrograde. But we still have another 7 years before Chiron actually leaves Aries. So there's still quite a lot of healing of the inner child to take place, and also healing of the masculine as well, because the masculine in particular has been more wounded than the feminine energy for various different reasons, wars, etc. Just the masculine energy has kind of had to fall into a particular way of being that has been a lot, in many ways, kind of restrictive, I would say, than the feminine energy. Although the feminine energy, I'm not saying hasn't had her own problems. Here in the early stages of Aries, Chiron is himself in the youngest stage of the sign. Each sign is divided into 3 decans of 10 degrees, which relate to growth from early learning to mastery. So the first 10 degrees are the really kind of early learning process of what's happening experience wise, and then as we go through the actual sign and we get into the 20 to 30 degrees, it's kind of like we hopefully have mastered that experience of that planet moving through that sign and why it's there in our lives and what it's kind of trying to show us and teach us. It is also interesting that in Greek mythology, Chiron himself was abandoned at birth, but it was through this wounding that Chiron was able to become the empathic and compassionate healer of others that he was destined to become. Chiron is always shown as a glyph in the shape of a key, symbolic to unlocking a deep held pain in order to recognize it and open the door to allow the healing to take place. Aries is also our inner warrior that gives us our strength, courage and ability to stand up for ourselves and what we feel is worth fighting for. As well as being a very hot-headed, fiery, passionate, forceful dynamic energy, it is also a childlike curiosity that wants to grow and learn more about itself in a new and innocent, sometimes even naive way. To see something anew with fresh eyes. To not stay stuck in the old stagnant ideas, views and opinions that keep the status quo in place. Aries is not a fan of the status quo. They find it dull and limiting. Hence the warlike nature to overcome the old rule of law, conquer and change the established paradigm. Aries want to be able to experience new options, as they know through that experience comes new growth. And to restrict our experiences of life restricts our ability to self-discovery from these very same experiences. The ruler of Aries is now sitting retrograde at 26 degrees and 9 minutes. The warrior is at this time having a bit of a respite since the 9th of September. And he's stationed retro at 28 degrees and 8 minutes. Mars, having spent a lot of energy since having returned home on the 27th of June, during which time we've seen a lot of riots kick off, corruption being brought out into the light, also kicking and screaming, a lot of anger, rage and passion. Mars is now recharging his batteries as he returns to that point of the sky at 15 degrees and 14 minutes, where he went into his shadow period on the 25th of July. This period of recharging, re-evaluating and reconsidering will continue up until the 13th of November. One of the biggest effects of Mars in his home sign has also been the uprising of the people en masse against the very draconian rules and methods being enforced against us. This, ironically, is both sides of the Mars energy, using the civil servants of the people in order to control the coming together of peaceful protests, voicing our very credible concerns over what we see taking place. Here in the UK, everything is on its way to a serious lockdown phase. Again, the rumblings of which seems to have been instigated astrologically by the new moon in Virgo, 6 months after the full moon in Virgo, back in March, where all the madness went into overdrive. At the time of all that chaos, the full moon was trining everything in Capricorn, which also had Mars in the mix. The Sun was conjunct Neptune, opposing the full moon and sextiling all the Capricorn energy, while Mercury was in the sign of Aquarius, the people, and Venus was trining Capricorn in Taurus, our environment. A total recipe for disaster, which it has turned out to be, with confusion, lies and deceit seeming to be the main rules of the game. Another strong underlying factor has been the slowing down of Saturn from the time of that Virgo new moon. Now though, Jupiter, 17 degrees 58 minutes or 18 degrees, has finished his retro period, and a couple of days before the full moon on the 29th of September, Saturn, 25 degrees precisely, has just done the same. Both of these planets will make a huge difference in the energy shifting, especially when Saturn starts moving forward on the 1st of October, same day as this full moon, at 1 o'clock UK time, 1 o'clock in the morning. So Saturn has already started its move forward very, very slowly. It's a big planet and it takes a long time. The only planet left in retro at this time is Pluto, 22 degrees 29 minutes. But he too has been slowing down in the sky, getting ready to station on the 4th of October at 1 o'clock in the morning. He too will begin his forward motion at 1 o'clock, like clockwork. So not only is he stationing in the sky on the 4th of October at 1 o'clock, he's then also going to begin his forward motion 2 days later at 1 o'clock in the morning as well, on the 3rd of October. Now, instead of adding his fiery warrior energy into the Capricorn mix, Mars is challenging it in a square with the help of the ongoing conjunction behind the scenes from his sister energy Aries, who's at 24 degrees, and Black Moon Lilith, who's at 27 degrees 49 minutes, or 28 degrees. Both of these feminine forces are adding their disruptive influences to this already in-your-face type of energy. The type of energy that cannot be ignored by either side. And what we are seeing here is the individual, the self, the I am expression of our psyche, no longer being willing to be dictated to and restricted by establishments of all and any kind. Politicians, corporations, members of the hierarchy, patriarchy, which includes women, those who want to control, dominate and govern over us, who force us to adhere to the rules that they create but don't live up to themselves, while at the same time they benefit from the suffering of others by enforcing more and more draconian rules in which they limit our freedom to life and free will. That's all the Capricorn energy at this time, being squared by all the Mars Aries energy. Particularly behind the scenes, as I was saying, this Aries and Black Moon Lilith energy, which is really kind of stirring everything up at this time. So we are still experiencing the collapse of these self-imposed regimes who are desperate to retain control under any measure possible to hold on to their lives of privilege and luxury. To stop the masses who are becoming more and more difficult to control due to the awakening taking place at the end of this Piscean era of the illusion, confusion, manipulation, hypnosis and dumbing down. To a life of servitude and serfdom, to a bunch of thieves who have managed to convince us they are doing it for our benefit and, because they are more superior, have bigger bank balances and are connected through secret societies, they have more rights. This is the belief that is being shattered right now and has slowly been reaching a crescendo since January. These are the true waves that are spoken about so flippantly by the media and the press. So when they talk about the first wave and the second wave, really what they're talking about, without even probably being aware of the fact that they're talking about these waves, is this ongoing rippling effect that is coming out from Saturn and Pluto, and when they meet up in particular as well, or when like Saturn has just been slowing down. Since Saturn started that slowing down, everything kind of went back to the lockdown. We need to lock down again, we need to stop this is getting out of hand. And Saturn is all about restriction and control as well. So that was the Saturn energy kicking back in again. But now that the Saturn energy is shifting and moving forward, we are hopefully going to see things become less restrictive in our lives as well. less dogmatic, less kind of like you must do this. So the second wave to come will be even more powerful as the smallest planet Pluto meets up with the biggest planet Jupiter for the third and last time in Capricorn on the 12th of November at the infamous 22-degree spot where it all began on the 12th of January. 22 being a master number, Capricorn being the sign of mastery, and November being the 11th month, and also a master number. More evidence the universe moves in mysterious ways. Be prepared for the finality of many things we believe are unchangeable. Pluto is Hades, the lord of the underworld, mining, metals, death, transformation, deep change, and no return. Jupiter is Zeus, the expansive, expanding, pushing beyond boundaries. He is full of promise and potentials, as well as the possibility of gifts. In Greek mythology, he is the brother of Pluto as well as Neptune, or Poseidon, who just happens to have been in sextile with this Capricorn energy also since January, from his home in Pisces. Pluto is the reason we have seen so much death being pushed on us during this Neptunian time of does it exist or not energy for this virus, something Neptune also rules over. While Jupiter blew it all out of proportion, and I will add to this the increase in suicide rates that the media does not want to or isn't allowed to talk about. Here the three brothers are working closely together. The last time Saturn and Pluto met up in Capricorn in 1518, a very odd and remarkable event occurred, which became known as the Dancing Plague. It started in April and by August had taken the lives of 400 people. And nobody has any idea what caused it. There was various different beliefs put out there as to what was making it happen. It took place in Strasbourg, and I have a link actually to a very short Vimeo video which I've attached to this blog. So if anybody's interested, you can go and check that out as well. It is quite informative and interesting. Adding to all this fired up emotion at this time, we have Venus in the last degrees of Leo at 28 and 50 minutes, or 29 degrees, making a very powerful trine over to the main trio in Aries, also at the latter end of the sign, particularly Black Moon Lilith. Venus and Mars, known as the masculine and feminine relationship planets, are at this time in agreement and alignment with each other, while also backing up her sister energies. Venus is giving her approval, adding her sense of dignity and strength, while also her love and passion from the heart, telling us to be strong in our convictions, to have the courage to be true to ourselves, as we are the ones who will need to look at ourselves in the mirror. She is also at this time trining the South Node, so we do have a far trine occurring in the background. Hence my earlier statement about not much happening at first glance. The South Node is making its way through Sagittarius in retro motion. The moon's nodes always move backwards. Right now it can be found at 23 degrees 40 minutes or 24 degrees in an almost perfect trine with Eris and Mars in Aries, as well as Venus in Leo. I would like to just add here as well that the Eris and Black Moon Lilith, I suppose Lilith more is mentioned, but Eris is a kind of behind the scene energy that most people are still kind of not really aware that it's there and that it's actually affecting us at this time in our lives in a very big way. And for anybody who has watched any of my previous videos or read any of my blogs, there is the fact that everybody on the planet at this time has Eris in Aries somewhere in their chart as well. So Eris takes over 100 years to move through Aries, So she won't actually be leaving until after, I think it's 2022 or 2024, round about that time. But she entered in 1922. So since 1922, everybody that's been born has got this asteroid Eris, who is the Greek, in Greek mythology, she is the sister of Mars. And we all have her somewhere. And she is feisty, she is fiery, she is the feminine energy that has been denied to be allowed to be that feminine, like warrior energy, where women have been made to become like good little girls who kind of behave themselves rather than kind of showing that bad side of ourselves, you know, that kind of like troublemaker, you know, the side that doesn't get invited to parties because she might kick off, or any of that side. It's that suppressed energy. It's the energy that has been suppressed in the feminine for centuries, really. And now, at the end of Aries, and with Mars there as well, it's really becoming quite strong, and Eris wants to be noticed. She wants us to know that she is there. And also, when she was discovered, interestingly, Pluto got dethroned. So the reason that Pluto is no longer classed as a planet is because Eris took over his domain as a planet, and Pluto became a brown dwarf, and Eris, who is larger than Pluto, got given the status of being a planet. So she managed to kick out the Lord of the Underworld and caused a huge amount of mayhem in the astronomical world as soon as she was discovered. So that basically is the Eris energy. So the South and North Node are known as our collective karma. The South being what we need to let go of and release in order to be able to move forward. Everything that has been holding us back and stopping us from evolving into the future, which at this time we find in Gemini, the North Node, like the North Star, guiding us home, where we need to point our ships for the duration of its stay. The South Node in Sagittarius is a tricky one, as the things we believe work in our favour, including Sagittarian belief itself, are things we have learned to find great comfort in. Sagittarius rules things like philosophy, higher education, universities, the written law, truth, freedom, faith, and religion. All these things are seen as positive, uplifting sides of our human nature, which they are until they become too dogmatic. We allow ourselves to be too dogmatic, then they can become indoctrination, disguised as something else. When this happens, we allow ourselves to be limited by the written words, passing themselves off as fact. We are told there is no more to this story, so don't bother going looking for it. Everything we have learnt and been conditioned to accept as written in stone can stop us from pushing beyond those boundaries. Within our refusal to see, we miss the shadow side. The element of us staying firmly entrenched in what we have collectively and individually come to believe as gospel, and therefore must not and cannot be questioned. And this is not just to do with religion, although it does include religion, but it also includes the fact that we can become very dogmatic about anything that we do, really. We become very dogmatic in our view on science. We can become very dogmatic in our idea of how we all collectively at this time in particular must all behave in the same fashion because one size fits all. It's a very dogmatic kind of view of life. It's like getting stuck in something and therefore not being able to move beyond where we are, because we keep ourselves in that same view, limited by what we have learnt, and not allowing ourselves to push beyond, like I said, push beyond those boundaries to see if there's anything on the other side, because we are so kind of caught up in our beliefs that this is how it is, and this is how it's always been, and this is how it will always be. So this idea of questioning or seeing another side of the story is where the Gemini energy comes into play. In the opposing sign of Sagittarius, karmically we are being shown the limitations of our dogmatic belief systems and how we can stubbornly stick with our dogmatic view instead of looking at why we believe that to be true and how that affects us. That dogma, a popular word in the press at this time, can and does cause people to die for their beliefs, as well as kill others, for beliefs that do not correspond, and more often than not, this is over alternative religious views. Of course, also wars are a very dogmatic thing as well, because we have dogmatic views about our own country as well, and the need for protection, which on some level we do actually completely need, but when you kind of break it all down, it's that idea of why somebody needs to go to war and die for something that they have such a strong belief in. It has become, by that point, it has become a dogma, and also those people who enforce those views on others as well. As a fire sign ruled by Jupiter, Sagittarius can be over-exuberant, impulsive and excitable. Not only is the trine energy here supporting our collective need to be courageous and true to our values, the Gemini energy is asking us to question, why do we hold those values and beliefs in the first place? Where did our understanding behind them derive from? The South Node is showing us what at this time is our poison, what we have swallowed on some level that keeps us going over the same ground. It is what feels comfortable and familiar, but at the same time something is not being recognised. Before we can release or let go of something from our past, first we need to acknowledge and accept it. The medicine we are all needing right now is coming from the Gemini North Node, which at this time is communicating with a sextile or the Aries Conjunct Chiron activity, while also being challenged by a square across to Neptune. Once again, I believe this karmically will involve the awareness that is growing around the abused children, the elite paedophile trafficking rings, and the top-down authoritarian control system that has been the root cause of it all for a very long time. Neptune and the North Node square are daring us to question the lies, the deception, to wake up and realise that this is not a fantasy, to use your brain, your thinking mind, to see the reality, even if it is harsh and difficult to accept. Now is the time to see through the Neptunian veil of illusion that has been cleverly spun for us, as very few people actually want to see the dystopian world that is being created from behind the scenes and that we are already beginning to live in. The North Node's quincunx aspects to both Saturn and Pluto will make it feel very uncomfortable to take a peek behind that veil, as if somehow we are doing something wrong in questioning the authorities and power figures. Just like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, who only by being brave and courageous enough to ask those difficult questions was she able to discover the truth that the great Wizard of Oz was just a man, and eventually able to get back home. We too are waking up from our own Wizard of Oz story, and our personal power, and discovering for ourselves that those we have allowed to control Saturn and take away our personal power, which is both Pluto and Mars energy, are in fact also mere mortals, and we do have the right and duty to question their actions, motives and lifestyles. If they believe they have the right to penetrate into our personal space, then we too have that same right to penetrate into theirs. The tables are being turned. One of the reasons for this is the move of the planet Mercury into Scorpio, which set up an opposition with Uranus as soon as it entered on the 27th of September. Mercury is now at 04 degrees 48 minutes or 5 degrees, which incidentally is the last time Uranus and Mercury opposed each other in the same signs on the 7th of October 2019. Both times Uranus has been in retrograde. Now Uranus is at 09 degrees 50 or 10 degrees in Taurus, and is also making one of those difficult quincunx aspects with our Sun. Mercury is our intelligent mind, how we think, our day-to-day planning, the data we take in, and what we do with what we learn. The planet Mercury itself relates to quick thinking, logical processes. People with strong Mercury or Gemini placements will want to research and discover for themselves. Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. It is the cosmic mind, or the universal conscious awareness, that helps us to see and feel the universal connectedness to all. That helps take us out of the microscopic and into the macrocosmic, to understand the greater plan or divine purpose. It says, stop keeping your nose to the grindstone or fixed on the TV screen. Look up, look outside of yourself, and see the magnificence of which we are all a part. With the Sun in Libra, we are also being given an opportunity to balance and harmonise those things within ourselves that feel overwhelming, too big to cope with, or can't be understood on a mortal level of existence, that our brains do not have the capacity to hold certain limitless thoughts. Or, if it doesn't make sense, we just reject it, and that is okay, especially as Chiron is also in opposition here, showing us how we can heal the wounds from our inner fears of everything seeming to be just too much. So Uranus energy, because it is the cosmic mind, can be overwhelming. So sometimes you can go outside and you can look up at the stars and everything is just so there. There is so much of it that it can be and feel really overwhelming. And at the time when we've got Mercury and Uranus in opposition to each other, it is almost like the small brain and the big cosmic brain, which can, like I say, make things seem overwhelming to us. It can make things seem larger than they need to be. It's like our tiny little brain in here can't hold all the idea of how big the universe is. We can't, so we close down. We kind of reject that idea. It kind of doesn't fit into our world, so we kind of just ignore it. But with this Mercury opposition to Uranus, it's almost like we're being given that awareness that, you know, we live in a very physical dimension, but there is so much more going on out there beyond what we are actually able to relate to on a physical level. So with Mercury in Scorpio, we are being encouraged to feel the depth of our connection through our emotions. This is not something we can logically understand. It needs to be felt. And one of the best ways to do this is through the self-awareness medium of meditation. One of my favourite quotes is from Albert Einstein, who said, "You cannot solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it." This to me is Mercury, Uranus opposition in a nutshell. So Mercury is causing the problems in the sense of like people's minds, how they take their ideas and create from those ideas, and then for government, like instance governments and politicians and their kind of small mindedness, shall we say, kind of creates a lot of problems because you're trying to deal with a big mass of people in a very small way of thinking. And so the Uranus mind is saying basically, like, you know, you've got to up that level of consciousness in order to be able to solve the problem that is being created here. You're not going to create or solve whatever that problem is from the same mind of the same people who are still trying to solve the same problems. You've got to go above that. You've got to lift out of that problem, and the problem in itself there is that these people who have these positions of power don't have that ability. They just don't have that ability to do so. So we just keep going round and round in these same circles. Mercury, however, is now slowing down. He entered his shadow period at 25 degrees and 54 minutes in Libra, where he will return to at the end of his retrograde on the 2nd of November. During this retrograde time, Mercury will be in opposition with Uranus 3 times. The first starting on the 7th of October at 09 degrees 37 minutes. A week later, on the 14th, Mercury stations retrograde at 11 degrees and 40 minutes. At the popular time of 1 in the morning, UK. He will then meet back up with Uranus on the 20th of October at 09 degrees and 09 minutes. By the time they next come together on the 17th of November at 8 degrees precisely, Mercury has already turned direct. Mercury is going to stay in the sign of Scorpio, bringing up our deep-rooted fears and emotional hang-ups right up until the 1st of December. Mercury in Scorpio becomes the emotional detective, digging up the past to those things we may not even recall on a conscious level, until Mercury prods and pokes those areas of our lives, forcing us to take a deeper look. With the opposition to Uranus, it feels like a slow cracking open to break through the outer layers and discover that what lies beneath is that connection to source energy. This will be happening on an individual level as well as collectively. The ruler of Scorpio is Pluto, who always works through the adverse. Pluto is the underworld where things are buried, until such time as they are brought into the light. So prepare for some shocks and some scandals and possibly some endings to whatever was discovered in this last year's cycle. Because like I said, Uranus hasn't really moved that much in Taurus. It's still kind of sitting at the same kind of degrees. And a year ago they met up on the 7th of October at 5 degrees, and now they're going to meet up again on the 7th of October, but this time they will be at 9 degrees instead. So it's like there will be a kind of cycle, an ending of a cycle, because it is Pluto, it is Scorpio energy as well. So last year, whatever was kind of going on around about the same time, things being dug up, things kind of being brought into the light, having to deal with emotional situations, people maybe coming back from the past as well, that may have hung around, they may not have hung around, but you may also be seeing again that same kind of energy happening as well, where people will return. Could also be the same people from previous last year. Like I was saying, it can be the ending of a cycle of a period of time of those oppositions between Mercury and Uranus. So over that last year and during that period of Scorpio, a lot of things were dug up on a governmental, political level, shall we say, that are yet to become well established, well known, because of course the media does not want to write about it, which of course is ruled by Mercury as well, so that's an interesting fact there. So when it comes to power, corruption and greed, and how low some power-hungry individuals will stoop to achieve it all and hold on to it. So that's what we're going to be seeing after I feel that this Mercury retrograde period of time is going to be over. I will just point out as well very quickly that Mercury will be going back into Libra, and it will be stationing in Libra on the 2nd of November, which just happens to be the day prior to the elections that are going to be taking place in the US, and also that there's this whole uproar at this moment in time about the Supreme Court as well. And I said in my last video, and I still stick by it, that it will be the Supreme Court that is going to be the judge of this election, because Mercury moving back into Libra is all about justice and fairness and harmony, and it stations the day before the elections, which is very, very interesting timing. So carrying on with the Sabian symbols, again I've had to use a different site, which I don't think is as good, but I will read them anyway. So the Sabian symbol for the 0-9 degrees point of Aries is a seer gazes intently into a crystal ball in front of them. This symbol shows the ability to focus, take in insights, analyse meaning and draw conclusions from the available information. It is likely that the whole picture is here in front of you, but you may need to interpret its meaning. With a little concentrated effort, you will be able to see things very clearly. There is the ability to observe things that others may miss. Try really tuning in and looking within for answers, as you have the ability to see them with just a bit of focus. What is your unconscious mind trying to tell you? Is your gaze wide enough or too narrow? Looking ahead to see the signs, flashes of inspiration, tuning in and looking within for inspiration, creative inner visualization, aura readings, penetrating the mysteries, clairvoyant abilities, being a seer. And the caution here is confusing literal meanings with symbolic messages, always looking this way and that, but not at the centre for answers, getting lost in the big picture, which is interesting because that's kind of what I was talking about as well. And I think the that bit where it talks about the wide and the narrow as well, is your gaze wide enough or too narrow? That for me again is the Mercury and Uranus opposition, because as I was talking about, the microscopic is the Gemini energy of kind of, you know, being very pulled into the details. Gemini likes details, it likes the smaller things, it likes data, it likes all those kind of things that make sense to it. So it's like looking at the microcosmic, or the microscopic, sorry, should I say, as opposed to the macrocosmic, which is the Uranus energy. So it is that kind of, you know, wider vision that is being sought here. And so for the 9 degrees point of Libra, there's 3 old masters hanging in a special room in an art gallery. Sometimes they seem to speak to each other. So this symbol speaks of beauty, art and wisdom. An art gallery brings treasures from our culture, our world and the world around us. Time often doesn't seem to exist in this realm. All is timeless. This symbol can show speaking to others about abstract concepts, art and culture, often on a higher level. Quiet contemplation of art, especially if people aren't around to distract, can bring rewards on many levels. Everyday chatter that doesn't go deep or explore life's beauties can be useless and mundane. But communicating on a deeper, more creative and spiritual level brings interesting insights and answers. Again, we have that energy of Mercury and Uranus, the inner head chatter, or the kind of mundane chatter that we have between ourselves is Mercury energy. Whereas the bigger, going deeper, as it says, to explore life's beauties, that is the Uranus energy again. Truth in images, intuitive vision, reverence for art and form. Images bring in messages, art collections, photographs, the art of placement, clairvoyant messages and portraits. The caution is undue reliance on old values, importance placed on appearance instead of substance, art's rarefied atmosphere that excludes others as unworthy or uneducated. So I'm going to leave the reading there and just say that opportunities for healing lie ahead, and I hope you have a really lovely Aries full moon. I am just going to quickly just checking the time there. I still have a wee bit of time left. I'm going to quickly pull one of these cards. They're flipping over, but I don't want to take them at the moment. So for the full moon energy in Aries, please, a ask and it is given card. We have too many, not taking them either. That's 3 cards that have come out there, and I'm not doing all 3 of them. So could I have a ask and it is given card for the full moon? Just one. Just one. No, I'm not going to break into song. It's got very glary all of a sudden though. Oh, there we go. Excellent, when you're not looking. To receive what I want, I must not push against unwanted, is what this card is saying. And so the message here is, this is an expanding universe and all things must be allowed. In other words, for you to understand and experience what you desire, you must understand that which you do not desire. For in order to be able to choose and focus, both must be present and understood. So it's kind of saying that we need to master, I feel, where it is that we put our energy and our focus of attention. But we have to realise that we also have to know what we don't want, but not put our energy and our focus onto that. For you to understand and experience what you desire, you must understand that which you do not desire. So it's the contrast, really, is what is being spoken about here. The contrast between the two. Being able to see the contrast, being able to see the positive and also see the negative side of that as well, and focus the attention on the positive, but be aware of the negative, and that you also can manifest the negative as well if you are putting your attention into that place. So I'm also going to pull a Kyle Gray Keepers of the Light card, because I haven't pulled one of these for a while. That's interesting. We get the Joan of Arc energy, voice of truth. It did come out in reverse, but when the cards come out in reverse, what they are saying is that this is a very important message and it really does need to be taken notice of at this time. So it's saying stand strong, focus on your purpose, release the fear of persecution and speak your truth. All very apt and very appropriate for what's happening at this time. This is really the I would say the Aries energy, but also the Mercury energy as well, because Mercury is also about speaking out and communication and truth. But it does really come across for me mostly as that Aries, the Aries warrioress here that has popped out to just remind us that she's there. Because of course Joan of Arc was seen as a troublemaker and ended up being burnt at the stake, I believe. I do believe she was burnt at the stake as a witch for her beliefs. Which interesting, because I did do quite an in-depth thing about the beliefs there as well. The Sagittarius South Node energy. So, Joan of Arc was a medieval French peasant girl who is reported to have been visited by Archangel Michael and other saints who gave her information on how she could help Charles VII save France from English domination. She was only a teenager when she went into battle for her country and won a huge victory. She was, however, later captured and burned at the stake. These days, she is a supremely loving guide to all those who want to stand up against the odds. She also helps many light workers overcome their fear of persecution, which is quite relevant at this time as well, because light workers are really being called forward at this time, really being called forward to stand in their power and know what it's all about in order to be able to help other people through this difficult period of time as well. So the extended message is you are being encouraged to stand strong. You may feel unrecognized and misunderstood, but that doesn't mean that you have to give up on the mission you feel called to fulfill. You must follow the will of your soul and exercise your leadership spirit by speaking your truth. You may feel as if you are on a battlefield, but this conflict will come to an end as soon as you stop defending yourself. You are not here to prove yourself to others. Instead, approve of yourself. Know that your angels are on your side and that heaven is thanking you for being the honest soul you are. So that is very apt for this full moon in Aries energy. As I was saying, the standing up, having the courage of our convictions. Joan of Arc energy, the female warrioress. So on that note, I am going to leave this reading and say thank you all very much who have watched this reading. I really do appreciate you being here on my channel, inspiring life changes and helping me to grow my channel and to get my messages out there, really, just to kind of like, you know, give me that ability to speak and say how I do actually feel about things as well. Because a lot of this has come via my own feelings and intuition of what is happening in the astrology, as well as I do receive kind of bits and pieces of guidance here and there, but a lot of it I kind of have some understanding of on a deeper level myself as well. So please, if you have liked my video, could you thumbs it up for me, because it does make all the difference to the algorithms that kind of pick them out and take them further out so that other channels can also see them, and hopefully other people can then come back to my channel and have a look for themselves and see whether or not they want to take it any further, if they're interested in looking at any of my other videos or subscribing to my channel. For all of you who have subscribed to my channel recently, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. There is a button on my videos that just allows you to tap it and a bell will open. You can subscribe, and if you want to get the videos as and when I put them out there, then tap that bell as well, because I do all the full moon, all the new moon, I do the astrology, I do the tarot readings for both of those as well, and I do all the zodiac signs too. So the next thing that I will be doing will be the sign of Capricorn as well. So if anybody's interested in my Capricorn reading or any of my readings, there are playlists there as well now as well. I have a playlist with all of my stuff on there for you to go and check that out. Also, comment please if you have liked this reading, if there's anything that you feel that you would like to say to me about the actual video or anything that I've said, please leave me a comment down below. There will also be a free natal link in the comment down below or in the description box down below for you to go and check that out for yourselves as well, so that you can have a deeper look at your own astrology and what is also taking place in the heavens at this time. So once again, wishing you all the best of this full healing moon that is taking place, and hopefully I will see you all again soon. Take very good care of yourselves.